Good morning. Oh, that was a bit weak. All this stuff about change and metanoia. Good morning. Oh, so much better. This is not the inspirational part of the service, so hopefully you soaked that up in the last few minutes. I'm doing a slide presentation. However, last week we reflected on wonder and awe, the practice of wonder and awe, and I hope you hear in these words the possibility of wonder and awe for us. In fact, I invite you into the idea of centering yourself in the possibility of awe and wonder as we reflect for a few minutes on this presentation. What we decided to do was, you probably remember that we said we would have information meetings about an option that's emerged for us in terms of our way forward after each service today. However, speaking about change, we changed the plan this week. We just felt like it was really important to get this message to everybody as much as we could, so that people all heard the same information. We will pause. I'm going to do the presentation. We're going to sing the last two verses of that hymn, and then for anybody that can stay, and we hope most of you will be able to stay, just for a few more minutes, we'll have a time for question and answers. So you'll be able to provide feedback, comments, and ask your questions right after this, okay? So I'll take a few minutes to do this now, and then we'll move into question and answers afterwards. So this option that's emerged for us really comes out of the conversations we've had since last spring. If you remember, we came to the congregation in about May or June, and we said, there's all these ideas floating around. Talk to us about them. Give us some feedback. So we had a couple of conversations about 5 or 6 ideas that had been emerging. We took the feedback we got from that, went to the board, and the board has had conversations over the fall around these ideas, trying to discern where are the directions for us to go forward. We brought those back in November. They're up on the screen, at least simple versions of them are up on the screen. Going deeper was our first one, and that is our main priority still, which means Hillhurst has a unique voice and presence in the world. We want to go deeper with that. We don't want to lose sight of that. The things we're doing now are really important in terms of bringing a healthy expression of religion in our city and in our world, and we know we can go deeper, and we plan to. And there are many things emerging around in our ministry right now, and so that's priority number 1 for us. Priority 2, we wanted to do something new. We wanted to take our 1960s, did you say, gym, and recreate it. We know we need new washrooms and new kitchens in the worst way. They're used constantly for the good of our community, and we need to refresh and renew them. We also are running out of space, so we need to find a creative way of using the gym differently so that we can create the space we need to serve the world the way we are. So that's going new. Going fishing is this idea of, more and more people are coming to us saying, what are you doing? How are you doing it? Can we learn from you? And we think all of us need to learn from each other in terms of bringing the leadership necessary to bring healthy religion in the world. So we've come up with this idea of going fishing, which is really creating a Hillhurst as an innovation space, as a leadership lab for all those who are curious about what kind of leadership will it take to bring healthy religion in the world. So that's another seed idea that we're exploring. The last of the 4 ideas was going beyond, and this is where we said there are new partnerships always possible here at Hillhurst. We're always being connected with, and people are always interested in saying, can you do this with us? And one of those opportunities is the idea that I'm going to share with you today. This is the partnership possibility with Living Spirit United Church, which is a United Church congregation, has been in the southwest Calgary, which is, Britannia Plaza, where the Sunterra is, Elbow Drive, 49th Avenue. A block east of that is Living Spirit United Church. They came together, 3 United Churches came together 18 years ago to make one church called Living Spirit. They have been there for 18 years. They took over an Anglican building, actually, and have renovated a bit, and have attempted to do ministry in that neighborhood, and have had some real success over these 18 years. But they're at a place now where they can't go any further. They have recognized that they are no longer able to continue ministry independently. They don't have the people or the resources to do that. So they came, along with the region, Chinook Winds region of the United Church, came to Hillhurst and said, can we have a conversation about what might be possible? So we have been having that conversation the last several months. The board appointed a transition committee. They have a partnership committee that they've called, and we've been meeting and talking about the possibilities. And what we're going to propose today is a concept that has emerged out of those conversations. So this month, we're sharing this information with you in the worship service. We'll have our Q&As. We had the same thing at 9:05 today. Next week, we'll continue with our schedule. After each service, we'll have informal time for question and answers. We're going to videotape, we are videotaping this. This presentation will be online, so people that weren't here today can access the slides and the information. Next week, we'll have more time for informal conversation after both services. The idea here is to plant the seed, the concept, the idea of this, and to get feedback, to generate interesting ideas, to ask the questions we need to ask before we take this step. So, what's the current state? Well, I've already said that Living Spirit is a passionate congregation. They are an affirming congregation. They are doing some important things in the world, but they've just run out of steam. They've lost a number of people over the last several years. And they just don't think they can continue going on. However, on their own, they have a good building with no mortgage. They have reserve funds from the merger that they've been stewarding over the years, investing some in the building, but maintaining some for future ministry. Their average attendance is somewhere around 30-40 on most Sundays, and they have considerable rental groups and community groups that are using the building. The why of this, for them, is that they know they can't carry on their own, but they don't want to do what is the traditional way across the country right now. More and more congregations are getting to this point and simply closing up and selling their property. And more than likely, condos are being built on that property. Right? That's what's happening across the country. There are 5 United Church congregations alone in this city that have a worship attendance of around 30 or less. So this is a growing challenge for the United Church in this country. And they didn't want to be another statistic like that. They feel they're a strategic location, and so do we. They feel they have something to offer the neighborhoods around them, and so do we. So they want to be part of an affirming, growing, welcoming, healthy community of faith. But they know they can't do it alone. Our current state is a little different. We have a vibrant and successful model for ministry. We have a way of engaging the community. We are part of the most important issues of the day. We are recognized as a public voice in our community and beyond. We have some infrastructure needs, we could call it, right? While we have a beautiful heritage sanctuary that is unique, we know we have a building challenge. And one of our challenges is we no longer have space for our growing programs. We cannot find space for all the ideas and the things that people want to do here in this place, which is a good challenge to have. We also want to continue to expand our work. We want to grow our presence. We want to expand the way that Hillhurst represents religion in the world. And as I say, we're challenged by an older building, but we're also plateauing by some indicators. And this is important to pay attention to and an important message today. Every organization goes through a life cycle. We know this from biology, we know this from organizational theory. This image simply reminds us that there's a birth, growth, and stability time for every organization, and there's also a decline time. We all go through this. And even healthy organizations like ours goes through peaks and valleys. And what happens is you have a spurt of growth, which almost always means a leveling off or a stability time. And we need that. That's kind of the balance. But a stability time that leads to plateaus can also lead to decline if we're not paying attention. And if we're not reinvesting in a new thing, just like the scripture would tell us today. So what's the new thing? So what we're suggesting by this image and in this conversation is Living Spirit has gone too far down. They got to a stable place, but did not reinvest or were not able to reinvest, so have slowly gone down the decline side of this image. So they're way down towards rebirth. They know they can't do it alone anymore. It's not just about redefinition, it's about resurrection for them. For us, we're at a place where we simply have to redefine, renew, find something new that takes us into the future with new energy. And so what we're suggesting is this opportunity might be that way to redefine ministry, to expand and grow, and get back on that path. So, what's the vision? The vision is that we would partner together in the Chinook area as one congregation. So Living Spirit is now having the conversation about joining Hillhurst as a second campus. So not a merger, not two congregations held together by a ministry team, one congregation and two campuses. This is the model that we propose, and we believe that through investing in an approach of engaging the community, that we can build a second campus that is vital and vibrant and sustainable. But it's connected to the one congregation model. So one of our members on our transition team actually went to our logo and created this. Oops, went too far. So the idea is that it's a one congregation, Hillhurst United Church, Kensington and Chinook campus. And the reason we're holding on to Hillhurst United Church name is probably pretty obvious. We have a vibrant presence in the city. We have a brand, you could call it. We are known. We have a public voice and presence that's respected. We have relationships in the community that are important. And people know about us. In fact, we've become a go-to place for people and organizations that want to connect with the spiritual path in the 21st century. So we don't want to lose that, and Living Spirit folks recognize that. The other thing that we should mention here is that Living Spirit as a community has been going through an intentional interim process the last 18 months with a trained interim minister. And one of the things they've been able to do is to walk through the path to get them to the place of saying, we need to give ourselves up so a new thing can happen. They're at that place. This is not a hostile takeover. Right? This is an invitation to say together, what's God doing new in the neighborhood? And the Living Spirit folks are as keen about that as we are. In fact, they keep telling us, let's get on with this so we can get rid of our pews and get chairs to create a different worship space in our current building. They are ready for something new. So we believe each campus needs to be aligned with certain common things, like core values. We know how important our core values are here for the community and how it shapes our ministry and everything we do. We believe we need to be aligned around core values. But we also know that there'll be a unique ministry that will emerge from each campus. The neighborhood of Alboya and Britannia and Windsor Park is different. It's a different context, therefore unique ministry will certainly emerge. The same thing with our Kensington campus. It's a unique location, and this context will mean unique ministry will emerge. We know we need to invest in a couple things in the second campus. One is, it will not work without engagement of the community. So our biggest investment will be to engage in those neighborhoods. Who's there? Letting know and building a presence that we are there. Finding new ways to partner, new opportunities to grow. So in a nutshell, what we're saying is our goal for this concept, and we've got a lot more talking to do, so it's just a concept right now, but our goal would be to finalize a new relationship with Living Spirit by June 30th, 2020. They believe that really they only have until about June 30th, 2020 to keep going. They need something new by then. So we've set that date to see if we can make this work. Both congregations believe, at least both teams believe strongly, that this is not about maintenance or survival. This is about transformation. And we believe both communities, both campuses will be transformed because this is an act of faith. And remember, faith in the best sense really means imagination and courage. And we believe this is an act of faith that we are stepping into and not a business transaction. So we don't want to talk a lot about details. We have a lot of work to do to get to the detail stage about this plan, but we do want to give you some of our thinking about how this might work. We strongly believe that one congregation, two campus is the right model for this situation. That means we have one board, one ministry team, and one budget that serves two campuses. We feel that's very important. We may develop in the first year what we're calling right now a ministry advisory team at the second campus to make sure from the local leaders that are there currently, they can advise us, they can give us feedback on what's happening so we can make sure and manage the transition well as we go forward into this new model. The driver of the change will be a ministry team that goes across both campuses. We believe it will be critical to add one new full-time minister to the ministry team to make this even feasible or possible. The other key thing here is that we strongly believe, as John, as our lead minister, needs to be lead minister at both campuses. Therefore, John will be serving and supporting both campuses equally. We do that for two reasons. One is because we want to make sure that campus, second campus, recognizes our commitment to make this work. And that's one tangible way we can say that. The second thing is we know John's gifts. John's a builder by nature. He's a relationship maker. John brought the energy required to transform Hillhurst 15 years ago. And that same energy is going to be required for the second campus. So we need to use John's gifts for this new venture. And the third reason, of course, is that John says he doesn't want to coast, so we're going to put him to work, right? That's probably most important. They have a dynamic young music ministry team. It's a couple who are married with 3 young children. They happened to be in our worship service checking us out last week, and they fell in love with Hillhurst. They loved the energy here. They are very excited about this opportunity. They'd love to stay. Their children, the 3 of them, make up 2/3 of the Sunday school. So they're a very important part of the congregation and the life, but most importantly, they want to bring their leadership and gifts for this new enterprise. Our admin team, our communications, our finance, our HR support would all support the second campus as it does currently the Kensington campus. So that's a way that Hillhurst is going to invest by expanding and adding to our ministry team here so that we can support from an administrative perspective and a communication perspective this new venture. So I know this is the big question you're all wondering about, and it's all on your minds. What about funding? Who's paying for this? Well, funding's just another word for faith too, right? That'd be my first answer. There are 3 ways that we see this being funded. First is the reserve fund that currently with Living Spirit will be invested in the new venture. We see this as a 3-year pilot moving towards sustainability. It'll take us 3 years. So the first year and a bit is going to be funded through the reserve fund. At the same time, we've been working since the beginning with the region and the national church about this, and they are fully supportive, and we plan to put a business plan together where we will apply for funding at that level, and they are fully committed to supporting this. One of the things we're saying is this is not just about Hillhurst, this is about the national church trying to figure out new models for ministry. This will be an experiment that we'll learn from that hopefully will support other experiments across the country. And so this is not only good stewardship, but it's an experiment that should be funded and supported by other bodies. And we're getting the green light for that. The third way is, as I said, Hillhurst will expand our current ministry team to be able to support both campuses in the ways that need to be supported. While we go through this, we wanted to name this, we want to make sure that the Living Spirit legacy is honored and respected. So we have been going through the conversation about how we do this. They've been doing their own interim work, and their congregation has come a long way since we first started talking to them these last several months. But one of the things we want to do is make sure that their legacy is honored. And so we're talking about things like naming the hall that's beside their sanctuary. It's quite a large hall, actually, the Living Spirit Hall. That's one gesture that we can make. But there will be other ways in which their story, their legacy of ministry will be honored as we go forward. And that's a very important thing for us, and it's not being taken lightly. So, quick thing about next steps. February 2nd and 9th, so today and next Sunday, we're having time to talk about this. So we're doing the presentation in both services. As I said, this is being videotaped, so we'll share it online so everybody gets the slides and the basic same information. Next week, we will hold the same meetings we advertised last week. That is, after each service, we'll have an informal time, a gathering, probably upstairs in the boardroom or in the heritage room, where we'll just have a chance to get together and people can ask questions, bring comments, bring our feedback. You can also do this online, and I think we have a slide here to suggest this, but nope, it's not here. That's okay, we'll get it up in a minute. There it is. So you can go to our app, you can go online, there's a feedback form right there on the first page, and you can just click it, fill it in, and give us any other feedback you want to give. There's also printed copies of these at the back of the church today. So if you can't stay for the question and answer today, please go online or pick up one of the sheets and just fill it out. Make sure we know your comments and your concerns or what you're excited about or what questions you have. And we will do that again after the service as well. Let me just go back to that slide. If you can just take me back to that previous slide. A couple more things. So we announced today that there will be a congregational meeting to review the budget, as we always do at the end of February. So February 23rd, we will do that. We'll also be doing a few other things, including putting a motion on the floor for the congregation to consider that we move forward with this concept in principle so we can do the detailed planning required. It won't be a final decision, but it's just a yes from the congregation to say, yes, go forward, figure out the details, develop a business plan, figure out a funding model, develop a good budget. Then we will come back, and after March and April, when we do the detailed planning work, we will come back to both congregations in May with a formal motion to say yes or no to this option. We won't move forward till we have all the details in place, and you can consider them before you say yes to this sometime in May, and we'll announce that meeting soon. The goal would be, if we say yes then, and both congregations say yes, is that we would formally make this happen as of July 1st, 2020. So, that's probably enough, you're saying. And you're right. We're going to pause now. I want you to just kind of soak that up as much as you can. Let's stand and sing our last two verses of our closing song. And then for all who can stay, we'll have time for question and answer. So thank you for being so patient this morning.
Please be seated. We're going to commit to about 10 minutes, so it's not even 10 to 12 yet, so we're pretty quick today. But we want to include you in questions. But what we would really like to do first is just for literally 45 seconds, all I'm going to give you, to the person around you, what did you hear? So just 45 seconds. Anybody around you, what did you hear that excited you or caused you to be curious? 45, I'm going to count to 45. That's not enough time. We just wanted you to have a chance to say something. And now what we're inviting you to is some questions to take a few minutes.
So there are two microphones, one on either side here. So we ask you to go to the microphone to speak, and we know if you have to leave, you have to leave. It's just if you can be as quiet as you can to leave the church. We'll carry on. We'll do more than 10 minutes because there's enough people here. We'll probably have a few questions, we figure.
Yes,
you have to speak right into the mic.
I'm almost
Great.
eating it.
Eat it. Yep, that's good.
I've already expressed some of my concerns, but one of my thoughts was that maybe you should consider sending an advance party to go and carry this philosophy over there. Like it's got 50 people. Get a group, 20 or 30 people that are going to transfer their attendance from here there, which will actually help getting the Hillhurst attitude being alive and recognized. And it would also make the congregation look more alive, so if people come in, they don't see a dead church.
Thank you. Yes. So here's one of my little reflection sermon. This is about what we're going to do. So there will be, we already know people live all over the city as far away as Didsbury, as far as I know. There will be opportunity for people in the south perhaps to go there. We'll be looking for a leadership team that will help us do exactly that, Hugh, because it's not me. It's a group who would commit to helping us move that church forward. So for sure that would happen. I don't know how to go left, right.
Hi there. I was just curious what the capacity was of the Living Spirit Church.
Okay, just to have to speak
Sorry.
right into that microphone. Yeah.
Can
like
you hear
you're
me?
a rock and
Yeah,
roll
okay.
singer.
What is the capacity of the Living Spirit Church and their space there?
The sanctuary space?
Yeah, I guess I was wondering mainly the sanctuary, like
Yeah.
30 to 50. Is that half full? Is that?
Yeah, no, that's not half full. There's probably space for 200, 250 people. So they have a lot of room to grow. Yeah.
In some ways, just to say something about that, when Ann and I went there this summer, there were 15 of us there at worship. Awesome people. They were lively and welcoming and hospitable, and they're very aware that they're at this place that they're ready to say yes to something new. It was kind of like Hillhurst, 2006 or 7, small, but ready to go, really ready to go.
I have a kind of similar question. I was just wondering, like you mentioned a hall and you mentioned pews, and that our building isn't serving our needs. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about just their physical space and setup and what you have been thinking it could be used for and that kind of thing.
Yeah, great question. So if you can picture kind of a 1960s classic church building built in North America, kind of long, narrow, A-frame roof. Sanctuary is turned that way currently. Has potential to be changed. And then outside of that, adjacent to that, there's a fairly large hall where they used to have an alternative worship service at the same time as their traditional service. So competing services. And that hall is quite large, much larger than our heritage room would be. And then they have a renovated or a new kitchen that they built on the main floor with offices off to the left. And then downstairs, they have a number of rooms. Most of it's been renovated. Most of the rooms are being used for community groups or by rental groups. And then they have a fairly large space as well for gathering downstairs as well. And they have a fair size land around. Some of it's owned by NMAX, the power grid system that's behind them, but there's free parking there because NMAX has granted free parking to the church. So there's quite a bit of free parking around the church. That's a summary version. Go here and then. It's okay, we're alternating mics.
Okay, I just want to say I've been coming and involved with board and M&P and groups for the last 6 years, and 2 years ago I would have said we weren't ready. Now I would say we are ready. And so my question is, how can I help?
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a great, thank you for that. It will require those who feel called to help us dream and work in the next till July, and then beyond that, who would like to help us move forward? You need to know we don't have it all figured out at all. We are courage and imagination inviting this possibility to come and sharing that with you, because it's going to require lots of us in a different way. Some of us may not at all, and others may fully engage in a new way.
So if I can just add to that, I think there's probably a couple of ways. One is we need to continue to make sure Hillhurst Kensington campus remains strong. And so the more leadership and support we have for our continuing ministries or our new ministries, that's critical. The strength of this campus is going to really support the growth in the second campus. So I think that's really critical. To pick up on Hugh's point too, if folks live in the South and want to try a new experiment version of Hillhurst, then that would be an option, is for folks to start connecting with the Chinook campus, or at least even for a short time. I've already had one person say to me, well, we're going to come here and get our fix at the 9 o'clock service, our Hillhurst fix, and then we'll go there for a 10:30 or 11. Who knows how that will emerge?
I've got two questions, one a little bit simpler than the other. The first is the plan for John to be the only minister who's at both, or and there be dedicated, or would it be kind of rotating between the two campuses? So
the ministry team will support, and what we mean by ministry team is all folks on the ministry team. So not just the clergy, but our lay ministry team that supports affirming ministry, right relations, and all the other ministries, congregational care. That ministry team will work together as a team to support both campuses. How the logistics work out, we're not sure, but there will be a crossover, and we see it as cross-pollination. We see one campus stimulating the other. If there's something innovative going on here, let's bring it over here and surprise people. So.
And the second question was, you used the phrase strategic location a couple times. When you say that, I assume you mean something beyond it being a bit further south in the city. So what are some other details about the neighborhood that makes you feel that this is a good idea?
Good question. Yeah, I think one of the strategic things is that there is no United Church from downtown all the way down to Acadia. So there's a big gap there in terms of United Church presence that this congregation currently fills. And there are several, we think 7 neighborhoods directly around the congregation that have no United Church presence and have very little actually faith community presence. And so we feel that that's an opportunity. It's also a different demographic than here, and we think that that can serve the community because of that.
I think you've already answered this somewhat, but heard a lot about the upside and the risks for Living Spirit. We've heard about the upside for this congregation. What do you see really at risk for this congregation in doing this?
Well, I think there's obviously that we need to pay attention to a couple of things. One is we're making an investment in this. In all kinds of ways, we're making an investment in this idea of a second campus. So what happens at the end of 3 years if we run out of additional funding and the funding's not there to support it? What will be our commitment to future ministry? And will we be able to support future ministry without outside funding to support us, either the reserve fund or the national or local churches? So that will be a question for us, and that's a risk I think we're taking. I guess the second risk is that we stretch ourselves too thin. That we don't put the resources in at the beginning that are going to make sure the ministry team has got the right complement, the right mix of the right folks to serve so that there's dynamic ministry happening on both campuses. I think that's a risk that we need to pay attention to going forward, for sure. There's probably others, but
yeah. And I would just add, I think both places you'd want to be strong, not a strong or a weaker, but try to be strong, which means that the ministry team and the Sunday worship is strong in both places, which if you saw the slides, it means we are going to call a new person. We also have the gift and benefit of Sheena and Dawn in that ministry team and rotation. So to create a strong clergy team plus the excellent staff we have here. So I think it's really going to be, we are risking and trying something. But how will we step out? Is this what we're being called to? And you need to know this isn't a done deal. This is an invitation for you to help us. We've done some of the pre-work. The board, I'd like any of the board people in M&P to please stand if you're here, just so we can see you. So board, M&P.
And our transition team too, if you transition team members that are here.
Yeah, these are folks who know something.
They're all at 9 o'clock.
Okay. So I mean, I think it's really big, we talk about contemplative practice, pay attention, be awake, be conscious, that's what we're needing to be. But I do think that some of the benefits are, we are working with the United Church this time around. When I got here, I have to confess, we just sort of did what we wanted. This time, they're partnering with us. They are cheering for us. They are offering to invest in this. So there's a good strength with the United Church denomination. We're trying something new that a lot of churches don't do. And so I think we're one of the places that have a track record of trying something new.
I'm really excited about this. We studied church growth in seminary in the late 80s, and back in the day we would have said that it was theology, evangelical theology, because I went to evangelical seminary, but it's obviously not, because this is a model that's recurring across all theological lines and even right across religious lines. So my question and my excitement is parking and bringing people in. how many exact parking spots do we have? And the second question, excuse me, it was a big issue in the 80s. It used to be 5 people were for one parking spot, and then they went down to 4, and they settled somewhere around 3 spots per, or 3 people per one parking spot. So I'm curious about that, and have we looked at a bus ministry from the LRT?
Last question first. No, we haven't looked at a bus ministry. That has not come up, although we're really early in the planning. Parking numbers, you're talking about the second campus now? You're talking about the Chinook campus? Again, I don't have a number, but when I look out to that, just the one parking lot that's behind the church, I see when they're full for what they are, and they're all there at church, there's a whole empty field. So there's a lot of parking. There's also there's street parking that's all available. It's not limited like here. It's not paid parking. So the street parking out front and around the church is there as well. So it seems to be parking won't be an issue, at least for 5 years.
Hi, I recognize you might not have an answer for my question. It's just something I'm thinking ahead to. When the detailed finances are looked at later, is it there going to be consideration for those on par where the money is going to go, which campus, or is it just all going into one pot?
Thank you. That is actually a good question. What we'll do, so we believe that there should be one budget. So when you give to the Hillhurst ministry. And the Hillhurst ministry, if we move down this road, would have 2 campuses. So you're giving to one ministry. So I think that's the short answer. We are going to present at the budget meeting February 23rd 2 budget options. One is for more of a so-called status quo budget for remaining here, and then one will be a budget, a high-level budget from what we know now around what this would look like from a funding perspective and how we would budget for it. So, but there will be one budget. That's our plan. Oh, yeah, you're right. Thank you.
Hello. The past predicts the future. Le passé prédit le futur. And it seems to me that Hillhurst's past story is a very successful one. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the work that you've done. I want to know...
Can you move up a little closer to the mic? We're not hearing you.
This is a kissing relationship.
There you go. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, better. I want to know where the board is on this, and I'm curious that I haven't heard from the board, or the meetings that I've been at, there hasn't been board members who have spoken.
A good question. So the question is around where is the board at? The board has been in the conversation right since the beginning. The board appointed the transition committee. A member of the board is David Keegan, is serving on the transition committee to do the planning. We report back every month, and the board has seen this full presentation in their last meeting and is fully supportive of the way forward. And the board will come February 23rd, bringing the motion and speak to the motion on February 23rd.
Okay. Could we know who is on the transition team from Hillhurst?
Sure. Kim Follis.
Some of them, so I meant to ask them to stand with the board. So Kim
Follis, Ann at the back, David Keegan and James Sylvester were both here at 9 o'clock, so I don't think they're here any longer. And then Sheena and John and I. Sheena Trotter Dennis.
We'll make sure you know have all those names. So there's a transition team, the board, M&P, and the trustees have all been working on this.
Yeah, we should say that. The trustees, there's 2 trustees for the congregation, and they've both have received the presentation.
Okay, so some of this information in written form would be helpful to people who are here, as probably coming.
This slide deck with all the information will be available to the congregation.
Okay. And there's a 4-point big plan out there. If we go ahead with this, do we still work on the other 3 points of the plan?
Yes, good question. So the 4-point strategy that we presented in November, this is one of the 4 points. The other 3 strategies are going forward. Different timelines, and this will take a lot of our energy and focus the next 6 months for sure. But those 4 strategies are still our direction for the next couple of years.
Okay. And you talk about hiring a new minister. So that's one of the expenses that Hillhurst will bear. What about additions to your staff here?
I didn't quite catch what the question was.
Are you considering additions to your staff at Hillhurst?
Yes. So thank you. So the question is, we are definitely going to bring a full-time ministry in to add to the ministry team, but there will be additions to the staff, probably more in terms of hours, so that we have the capacity to do what we want, and there will be some change of roles, we expect. So the focus of some roles might be different than they have been the last couple of years, all in an effort to get the right ministry team balance. And we are working on a model now for that, and we will present that as part of the budget discussions February 23rd. So you have a better idea of the concept for the ministry team going forward.
Okay, we'll do this as the last question, if that's okay.
Yeah, the first thing I want to say is I'm glad to hear that it's not a hostile takeover. I didn't want us to be like the Rupert Murdoch of the United Church of Canada or something like that. Nor do I want us to become like a huge cringeworthy organisation like Hillsong. That'd drive me up the wall. But I was lucky enough to walk in at the end of the 9 o'clock service, and I heard you talking about the 2 ministers at Living Spirit, and I want you to talk about the importance of this June 30th date, because I think there's an impact of the 2 ministers that you were talking about at Living Spirit. And also you mentioned some good things about, I don't want there to be a negative impact on the existing staff at Living Spirit. I mean, are people going to lose their jobs at Living Spirit? What's going to happen with that?
Thank you. Thanks for asking that question. It's an important one. One of the things that's been very heartening is all through the morning, there's been a lot of concern expressed for the Living Spirit community and their staff. And that's just what you would expect from Hillhurst, but to be able to take that back to them when we meet again to say what was the feedback and say, hey, the highest priority is how are you doing and how are you going to be supported through this process, I think is really important. So thank you for raising this again. In terms of the staff, the Living Ministry staff right now is made up of 2 half-time clergy. One who's focused on leading the interim transition process over the last 18 months, and one who's focused on pastoral care. Both are on term calls that end June 30th, 2020. And neither of them are looking to be renewed. So they will be leaving their positions at that date. That's kind of a hard stop for them. And that's what the congregation has been working towards, saying, we want the new thing in place by then. They have a couple of other staff. One, as I've mentioned, the couple that is the music team. They're very part-time. They both do a number of other pieces of work in the community around music, but they would love to continue. And then they have a part-time office administrator that's there during the week, during some days. So that's the present staffing. And we are going to meet with the office administrator and certainly see if it works out and if they're interested that they could be part of our administrative team going forward.
So just to add on, that's exactly right. You need to get a picture in your mind of a church that's very ready, very excited, very hopeful, and similarly, the meetings that we've had with them have been very positive and engaging. So the hostile takeover doesn't exist. They do feel like this is the right thing for them to do, and we're engaging with you to find out, is that the right thing for us? And so it's not done today. I want to thank you and Dawn for an excellent presentation. We've given you a lot to think about. This is a process. The 4 proposals we gave earlier in the year, we continue on with those. We're highlighting this one, which is a significant metanoia, a significant change, but we need your input on paper, online. There's the way to go next Sunday. And stay for lunch right now and eat with your friends. Will you please rise for the blessing as we go? I want to thank you for your attention, for your curiosity, your questions, and we move forward together, for we do not do this solo, but together, all as different lights, all gifts of God. Let us pray. Spirit, we give thanks for new ideas, new beginnings, new possibilities, for questions, for answers, for more questions. We give thanks that you trust us to be light in the world. May you illumine us to be your light. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, one God, creator and light of all. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks for being here. Please stay for lunch.